Can you believe how fast this year has gone by? The only thing I can think to say is wow. I really think it's important for all of us to take the time that we need to reflect and celebrate all the wonderful things that we were able to accomplish this year in spite of all of the crazy things that have been happening in our world, and also take some time to evaluate some of the things that we incorporated into our homeschool this year that maybe we want to change up for the next year. Today I'm going to focus on sharing some reflections and review of our homeschool in 3 key areas. The first being curriculum, the second, how we have evolved in our approach to homeschool and some of the routines and habits that we've changed along the way, and last but not least, some key lessons that I have learned as a first year homeschooler. Curriculum. I am not going to go into too much detail with all of the different resources, but I do want to share and highlight some things that worked really, really well for us and others that we're probably not going to use in the future. The very first is JDA's preschool curriculum, specifically her workbooks and her hands-on literacy and math workbook. This has been so wonderful for us. Is this upside down? No. Okay, thank God. My preschool/pre-K child has really grasped so many new concepts through the use of JDA's resources. I cannot say enough about how thankful I am to have found this and to have used this with my daughter. I feel like she has grown so much, and it's really, really prepared her for all of the curriculum that I'm hoping to incorporate this year. Next, I'm going to talk about curriculum for my first grader, and I'll start with math. Dimensions Singapore Math. This curriculum has been a constant hit across this year, and it's been something that my daughter has been able to connect with so well. And honestly, I can't pinpoint exactly why that is. To me, as a parent using this curriculum, it's been super straightforward. And there are so many great resources that they have available for you online if you are trying to figure out other ways to engage your child in either more games related to the concepts that they're learning, and also provide some resources that you can print and use as manipulatives for your child. I don't have anything to compare this to. This is my first time using any kind of math curriculum, and thankfully it was a hit and it worked for us. Now I want to briefly talk about some logic and critical thinking books. The first is Primary Analogies, book 1. This is something that we have kind of used off and on, and I wish we would have kept up with it a little bit more. I don't not like it, but it was hard to figure out how to incorporate it on a daily basis. I think this is one that we're definitely going to pick up in the future. The next book is Mind Benders, and if you've seen some of my other videos, I've talked about this book. I really love this book, and it's been so fun for my first grader, who is now a rising second grader, and I have purchased a copy for my kindergartner because we just love doing these puzzles. They give you clues, you have to use deductive reasoning to figure out the puzzles, and it's been a lot of fun. I definitely am interested in purchasing the second book in this series. Last but not least is this book. It's a critical thinking skills book, and honestly, I went back to look through it, and this is one that I am so sad we didn't incorporate more. I think we did like a few pages out of this, and then I just lost steam and I did not keep using it. So again, this is one that I feel like I want to do a little bit more of in the future, and maybe Montessori it a little bit. The next area I want to talk about is writing. I wanted to love this. I wanted my kids to love it, but it didn't work out. This one is specifically one that we used for my first grader, and it was meh. We're not really into it. We're not going to use it again next year. Handwriting Without Tears. We did it. We went through it. We pretty much finished it, but there were tears at some moments. This is Draw Right Now. I like this book. My daughter likes this book, but this is another one where we don't use it as consistently. My daughter loved drawing all the pictures, but hated to do the copy work. So I don't know if I'm just gonna kind of put this out casually and let her do it at her leisure if she really wants to, but I'm not going to force her to continue to practice. Now let's talk about language arts. First and foremost, Harcourt trophies. What first attracted me to this curriculum was the fact that it was secular. And I was also looking for a curriculum that would be a little bit more aligned to what a public school classroom was doing, simply because I wanted something a little close and familiar to what my daughter was used to in her traditional school. This is something that we definitely enjoyed more in the first part of the school year rather than the second. Part of the reason why we enjoyed it more in the first half is because a lot of the readings were more simple and the pacing seemed right for us. And then all of a sudden it really picked up, and there were a lot of words in the stories that my daughter was having a lot of trouble with, and it was hard. It was almost like we were racing to keep up with all of what we were learning in here and reading in here. In hindsight, I probably would have went with a different curriculum, and I am going with a different curriculum in the future. However, I think a lot of the stories here will be ones that we can use for practice and maybe reading comprehension in the future. No. Did we even do anything in this? I have no idea. This is me feeling like I needed to catch my daughter up on stuff, and we didn't touch this. So yeah, I am hopping back on here because I'm in the middle of editing and I completely forgot to mention 2 other curriculum books. One, which is Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. I have a video on this. We're not doing this ever again. Then we have Alphaphonics. Alphaphonics was a pretty good resource for a while, and then I discovered some other things that I feel like are provide a little bit more depth for my kids and a lot more activities for them to be able to practice all the different phonogram combinations, blends, digraphs, and all those kinds of things. It's a good curriculum, but it is pretty dry, and I did find some other things. So we are going to be using this off and on as a reference resource when we want extra practice. First language lessons was interesting. What I appreciated the most about this curriculum as a newbie homeschooler was the fact that it was scripted. That was helpful. However, there are definitely things in here that I found problematic, but then there were other things that I really enjoyed, like having my child do some poetry memorization and recitation. I think that that's an important skill and something that I want her to practice in the future. So I feel like perhaps during this summer we might pick and choose things to do out of this book. Last but not least is Explode the Code, Book 1. This we finished, I think, in March, if I'm not mistaken. I think it had a really great balance of activities in order for her to practice phonemic awareness and initial sounds and things like that, and really reinforce a lot of what she was learning. So this was helpful in that regard. We are not going to get book 2 only because we purchased a curriculum that is very all-encompassing, and we really didn't need that resource anymore. So we're going to see how that works for us, and I will share with you all about that in my next video. So now that we've talked all about curriculum, I want to share with you how we've evolved over this school year. So in the first part of this school year, if you have seen my other videos, I was definitely a fish out of water, and the way that I approached doing homeschool was basically doing school at home. After some time, it wasn't working so well for us anymore. And things started to take a little bit of a turn during the month of November because I was getting burnt out. The kids were feeling burned out. My philosophy, I feel like, has changed about homeschooling. I've given my children the opportunity to be more creative and inventive on a daily basis, and that has really helped us to be a little bit more balanced in our approach to homeschool. I had a video about eclectic homeschooling, and I talked a lot about unschooling. And while we absolutely love that, I realized that we also need and want structure. In terms of like learning specific concepts, I'll just give you an example. My oldest daughter really wants to get more fluent in her reading. She's a good reader, but she's not as confident, and she struggles with getting frustrated with herself for having to stop and sound out words. What I was seeing is that because she had this frustration with reading, she was refusing to do it. And I would try to informally invite her in, and I would put books in different places. I was trying so many different things, but for her, it just wasn't working. And what I realized is that she craved one-on-one time with me, and she was okay with doing some lessons with me and really practicing and having the space to make mistakes. And so I have been really reinserting some more structure for us in terms of our core. Right now, the way that we're structuring things is that we have core learning time, which is a one-on-one time that they'll have with me to do specific lessons in reading, math, and writing. In terms of learning outside of our core, that's going to be more of an unschooling approach. Last but not least are some important lessons that I have learned in my first year of homeschooling. The first is to never underestimate the importance of your mental health and self-care. I will say, I did not prioritize this in my life, for the better part of this school year, and I suffered silently for so long. If I can extend an encouragement to you, it would be that you need to prioritize yourself. You need to prioritize your faith, your mind, and your body. The second thing is to have realistic expectations for yourself and your kids. I would have these high expectations for how much we were going to accomplish in a day, the levels that my kids were going to reach, and the work that I was going to put in to make sure that they have all the things. The point is that it's so important to have a good, realistic gauge on what your expectations should be for yourself and your kids. The next lesson is that I am learning alongside my children, and it's okay for me to make mistakes too. This is something that I believe hardcore for my kids, and I always remind them of that. But I do not extend the same grace to myself as I do my children. I have beat myself up so much about the trial and error of this first year of homeschool. And it's not worth it. I see that it's not worth it anymore, and I have to realize that as much as my kids are learning, so am I. The last thing is so practical, but I learned that it's okay to go back and repeat things as necessary, as many times as necessary, and even scrap something and start over from the beginning. It's a frustrating thing to do, but you have to understand that it's necessary sometimes, and that your kids are going to be better for it. You're going to be better for it in the long run. Thank you so much for spending your precious time with me today. I truly appreciate it, and I appreciate you. In my next video, I'm looking forward to sharing with you all about our second graders curriculum, and also some of the ways that we are going to be transitioning to Montessori learning in the future. Take care, be blessed, and I'll see you in the next one.